What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Giganomics. Today, I would like to discuss a more philosophical concept rather than a economic concept. And this concept applies more to life, generally speaking, which is what I like to call the dynamics of life, or the understanding that so many things in life are dynamic, and the course of events that we set for ourselves in our own lives are always something we can't even imagine is possible. For example, it's like the window that only exists over a period of time where it was a wall before. And so we can't even see what is actually there before it occurs. And I guess this is a little bit perplexing in the sense that when we ask the question, what are the choices that one should make? And what are the values one should uphold? And what is the path one should follow? It all comes back around to, I guess, applying the economic concept of subjective evaluation to one's own decisions and actions. But as far as myself goes with this podcast, it's really what I choose it to be, because this podcast is about economics, yes, but also philosophy, secondarily or primarily, I'm not sure. But it can be so dynamic that it can be whatever I want it to be. And I think that's part of the beauty of exploring in life, but also introspectively exploring and seeing what can be created by one's own self. And with I guess with anything in life, it's never what you initially intended to create. I apply this to art. If you want to draw something or paint something and you're not that great at it, but you can conceptualize it and visualize it and see it in your mind for what you would want to create, when you attempt it, it typically doesn't turn out the same way. And I guess this is a part of life that some will say is disappointing, whereas others will say this is a beautiful part of life. That, yeah, it is in fact that we can't have what we want or create everything that we desire. And I'm trying to be an optimist, and in this sense, but there is definitely, I think, a good philosophical case for being disappointed with everything, and being disappointed with the fact that, yeah, life is dynamic. Nothing lasts forever, and nothing can be everything we want it to be. But what might be important to keep in mind is that regardless of what we would like or not like, life happens, and it continues, and time continues, and time doesn't stop. And it's not my place to say what someone else should do with their own life. I can only make that decision for myself and what I would like to do with my life. And to be honest, it's a little cloudy Um, and the seas are not that smooth because there is a lot of confusion. There's a lot of uncertainty. But this path is still something to carve out. I may not be an original, and I may not be the first in whatever endeavor I venture in, but it is still my own path and my own journey, and for me to pursue. And even though what I would like to pursue might not turn out or become or manifest the way I would want it to, it's really the fact that everything in life will come as a surprise, because nothing in the general sense can be planned for. The experiences to be had are undiscovered daily, hourly, to the second. The person around the corner that you meet who becomes someone of significance in your own life is just around the corner. And those experiences and adventures to be had, they exist only in time, and time is the only maybe measurement that is constant, irreversible, unalterable, because life exists not just in the real world of matter, but within, and not just within space, but within time too. But I don't know exactly what time is, but it's real. We can observe the passing of time, even though I don't even know if it would be something that's physical, but we observe it with the empirical evidence of physical things, more or less. We probably can measure and test time in many ways, but that's not the point. The point is that life happens. It exists. It comes and goes, and everything that happens within this framework of time is so beyond control of a single person that it's remarkable. And because I prefer to be an optimist, to make the case for optimism and always being an optimist, with this time, you have to pursue what you want, because at the end of the day, it's all about sleeping well, and not necessarily working hard for the sake of not sacrifice for the sake of effort, but pursuit of see, this is complicated, because like we have to figure out what is a value worth pursuing. What is this desire that drives people to pursue different things? And I'm not sure. I really don't know, because I'm hearing conflicting things between hard work as a virtue in itself, but then another perspective being there's no virtue in hard work. it's productivity that counts and matters. And I guess I'm still trying to figure that one out too. But the case for optimism in life and time is to explore what is undiscovered to oneself and to continuously pursue. Maybe pursue exploration for exploration's sake, to see what lies in the unknown, because we're not born omnipotent with the infinite knowledge of the world. That's just not reality. We're born actually not knowing as many things, and life and knowledge is a culmination of, I tend to think that maturity is a combination of experience and knowledge, and those things are required, and these come over the duration of life. That's why they say, people generally who are older in age are more wise or knowledgeable, and also they have more experience. So this idea that we should, not we, but that someone may pursue exploration for exploration's sake, I think could be a fascinating idea, in the sense that I guess the explorations to be had in life are infinite. The abundance is incomprehensible. There's too many cities. I don't want to say countries, but localities and people and cultures to learn, to really learn, be immersed in, experience, in one lifetime. But that shouldn't be a reason to restrict the choices had, and restrict exploration altogether, because life is one big journey. It's one big explorative journey, and whether it's in the external geographical sense of exploring, there's also an entire lifetime of introspective exploration and discovering who you are as a person, and what your own virtue is. Just recently I watched the movie The Fountainhead, and Howard Roark says that self-respect is his virtue. That's not verbatim, don't quote that, but the idea being that his self-respect to himself and nobody else is what he holds as his highest virtue. And I think there's something very fascinating about that, because Howard Roark is an architect, and his passion is his reward of creating buildings of a unique kind for himself, not for anyone else. Well, not necessarily for his clients, because he says his clients allow him to build. But that's a digression. I'm trying to use this podcast dynamically as a medium for allowing myself to reflect on how I think, and I find it fascinating, and I also honestly find it somewhat narcissistic. Why is it? This is a common question with, I think, anyone who might podcast on anything, is, well, why? What gives you the right or the Who cares what you think? Why are you so special compared to what other people think? And I'm not like I'm in the economic sense competing with everyone else for a podcast. And if you're listening to this, then there's something of interest here that I'm providing. And it's not that I'm speaking, of anything magnificent or remarkable, but these are my ideas and my words, and I'm trying to record them, to reflect on them, to become more conscious, and more, even more introspective, to dive deeper into my own way of being, thinking, just to see what occurs, what comes out of this. So yeah, that's one, I guess, interesting thing about speaking. And also, there's that one quote, I don't know who it is, but the wise man says nothing, something like that. And it's, I guess, contradictory to the whole concept of podcasting, because it's just speaking. So there is an argument to make that a podcaster is not wise at all. But hey, that may be accurate. So jumping back to this concept of maintaining a understanding that life is dynamic, I think is fascinating. How I think there's from that concept we can go into open-mindedness towards everything, knowing that yeah, I could be wrong about many things. Even though I'm confident that I'm right about a certain specific thing, I may be wrong. And really all you have to do from there is just think, okay, ask the question, how could I be wrong about this? For example, diets are scientifically controversial. And it doesn't have to be scientifically controversial. It could be about, anything that's like fictitious. For example, the character in this video game or this movie wore a cannon on his left arm, but really it was his right arm, and really you thought that it was red, but it was blue, and he was from this planet, but actually it turns out he was from this planet. So these things are things that anyone can be right or wrong about. And this could apply to so many things in our life, that we become sure about. But really, there's so much uncertainty and unknowing. And now, this, taking that logic to the extreme, well, would raise the question, well, how do we know anything? And that's a very good question. I'm not sure how to answer that, but if we want to relate this to economics, well, there's what we call, not we, I'm not saying we, but what, and I don't want to misquote, so I want to be responsible for what I say when trying to discuss other people's ideas. But there's this concept, and I'll do my best to try to be as accurate and honest as I can about this, but there's this concept called an a priori truth, which means I believe it's prior to our knowledge and knowing of the validity of a certain truth, it is already true, regardless of our opinion on the matter. For example, Okay, so let's see. The main a priori truth that at least that comes in economics is that human beings partake in actions. How we achieve anything in life is through actions. And although this is so minute and mundane, it is of the fundamental and utmost importance to understanding so many things. In the sense that, yes, indeed, human beings partake in actions to achieve their goals or their ends. And what their path of actions are in the course of events are called means. And means are used to achieve ends. And means are actions. And this is at the individual level. So for example, if you're thirsty, your mean to satisfying your end desired goal, which is to quench your thirst, is by the means of pouring some liquid into your mouth and then using your throat muscles to swallowing the liquid in order to consume and digest the liquid in your body and hydrate yourself. I know that was very scientific and intelligent. Thank you. But those are means, and people have ends, but the ends are so widely varying and so subjective, which in itself is fascinating, right? So, 300,000 years ago, humans evolved and existed, and then 100,000 years ago, they developed agricultural farming, I believe, and what really, this is another quote, allowed for the ancient Greeks, which would have been 2,000 years ago, to develop their philosophies. You know, you had the ancient Greek philosophers, Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. What allowed them to develop their philosophies was really what in economics is considered as leisure time, or time not spent on labor. And labor is a broad term that includes anything that's used to achieve either, okay, so there's many forms of labor, but in the general sense, labor is typically compensated by a wage. However, when you're in entrepreneurial in an entrepreneurial sense, pursuit of labor, that is more of a investment and is not directly compensated with a wage, because there is no overseeing employer to that person. So what their labor is consists more of spending their time on creating a craft or a good, or providing a service to others. But really, what the agricultural revolution allowed for is the development of more leisure. People had some, and also, money was invented with the ancient Greeks. They thought of money as another element. So there's many influences that allowed for that society to flourish the way that it did. And one of the blooming achievements, if you will, of the ancient Greeks was their philosophy. And you had the, Platonian and the Aristotle main branches of philosophical thought. But again, what allowed for this was the leisure, and this is what creates arts. This is what ideas are all about. And the whole concept of specialization in economics, specialization in trade, comes from the availability of leisure. It is due to the fact that people can spend their time playing video games, that we have people who play video games for labor. Like people get paid for the ultimate leisure, which is playing video games. I love video games. I one game in particular, I play it. That's practically the only video game I play. And there's people who get paid to play it. That would be ideal. I don't see how getting compensated for leisure, in my perspective, is not ideal. But that's not what interests everybody. And that's actually, it's not good or bad, but that's actually what is realistic, is that not everybody is interested in the playing video games, in the leisure available for people, but two, being compensated for playing video games. Because if it becomes a job where, like, hey, we need you to play video games so people can watch, or so we win this competition so that we make money together, then that could be daunting for some people, and they're like, I don't want to do that. Which, going back to the point of morality, is not good or bad. It's just, it is what it is. This is specialization. And specialization doesn't mean expertise. It means a concentration or a focus in a specific avenue or a field of study of some sort. And that's why, there's this concept of the signaling theory, which is that most of the time people who go to colleges or universities are signaling to their employers that they're capable of completing tasks in a timely manner, not so much that they specialize or become experts in their fields of study that they studied in colleges and universities. This dynamic life that people are given can be used for almost anything. And that is fascinating. It's almost, I want to use the word beautiful, that there's so many people doing incredible things in so many different ways. I think that deserves, a moment of reflection and admiration. And I don't know if that is supposed to be a driving motivation for people in their life, but it's definitely examples of incredible feats that have been accomplished by certain people, certain individuals. And maybe if there was one underlying quality that was carried by all these people, is their virtue for their own, I don't want to say self-respect, but their own actions of pursuing what they, to more or less varying degrees, wanted to pursue. whether that's in the arts, in the sciences, in the services, uh, in so many different things. That's pretty remarkable, and it's pretty badass. It's pretty cool. Um, so to wrap it up, life is dynamic. Life is so dynamic. What you don't like today may be gone tomorrow. And what you learn to love tomorrow may not be here today. But the exploration, I guess the exploration bug or gene, both introspectively and externally, internally and externally, should be protected. It should be, I don't want to say should because that implies some morality, but speaking for myself, I think it should be protected and cultivated in order to snowball from a small spark of interest in any any direction, in anything, and cultivated and manifested to grow and develop and shape and molded and cut and scratched and glued and broken and pieced back together and torn and ripped and sewed and welded and beaten and bruised and protected and safeguarded, and just allowing it to build and develop until you have this creation you could have never imagined prior to the experience of exploring all the possibilities of the limits that have been reached with this one initial spark. Yeah, that's pretty cool. All right, everyone, thank you for listening. Take care. Peace.